possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
Concerning the barricades put up in Washington, D.C., you'll notice that they went up the White House and at Treasury. It probably won't stop with that. We'll see other places, but they started right there. And you saw a van that blew up yesterday there in D.C., and then we had the firefighters that were attacked up in northern Idaho. Somebody started a fire, and then when the people showed up to respond, they were being shot at, the first responders. The things that are happening in Iran are, obviously very serious, but from an Iranian perspective within the mullahs and that whole ISIS, uh, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other, it's 100 groups really, M23 in the Congo. They have a lot of people that are not banding together. They are lone wolves. And the intent is that if they're working as a group, it becomes easier to track where they're planning on doing stuff. When they're given a more generic mission, options, and turned loose in the country, they can be very disruptive and nobody sees them coming because they're not coordinating with anybody. They may loosely have had a plan, but they don't share it with everybody else around them necessarily. And so the reality is that when you have those kinds of lone wolves, some are more effective than others. But cumulatively, it's 1,000 razor slashes. Uh, uh, the other side of the coin is that uh, they tend to burn out pretty quickly. And we may be coming into a season. If you remember, for example, I wouldn't say it except that it's already happened. Look at the snipers that went across the country and ended up out, on the East Coast, starting from Washington State up there years ago. And you had just two of them, and they put whole regions into some kind of a lockdown, just a couple of them, and they just had to be super sneaky. Um, and people are doing different types of things. People have looked at the grid and all sorts of things. It's not necessarily that they're going to kill the whole country, but they can put us into some kind of a lockdown, tie up a lot of forces, and thwart smooth natural flow activity for the citizens. Are they going to be able to pull off a highly coordinated, something huge, big? It's always possible, but I don't think so. And in fact, the Iranian people have been working with our own intelligence agencies for years now. If you look at what happened in Iran with the bombing, the surface-to-air missile system was very well mapped, and both Mossad and U.S. operatives working with Iranian citizens were able to identify most of the sites pretty quickly before the Israeli aircraft arrived there, and of course later our own, and take out all those surface-to-air missile systems with drones. Um, the same thing is true of a lot of these sleepers that are in America and other places in the world. And we're getting intel assistance, by the way, from Christian groups in Iran who are trying to help us so that we're not being damaged and wiped out because they want to be free of the mullahs in Iran themselves. And they see them as a threat, not just to themselves, but to the whole world. So, it's the church in Iran, if you can imagine, just thinking about the church in California, understanding the threats against it and coordinating to stop that. It'll be people observing, paying attention, knowing something's not right, knowing there's a person and making the right report. Are we going to be perfectly uh, protected except by the hand of God? No. But just like they tried to get Trump, didn't get him, every day is a gift. And we're in a war. All war is spiritual. This is a spiritual war. It started when Satan rebelled in heaven and everything thereafter. So you don't have war without damage and destruction as a general rule. So by God's hand, California needs to be protected. The whole country needs to be protected. And taking measures in DC to protect those facilities from whatever may be coming is not wrong because we're pushing a lot of buttons. Finally, let me just add this one thing. It was the White House and the Treasury. Trump took the high ground with the military parade, planted 2 flags out on the White House front lawn. It's like Mount Suribachi, with the flag being raised, letting everybody know with not just 1, but 2, that this is part 2 in the Trump administration. Just like you were looking for secret signals and stuff like that, hidden right in plain sight. The 2 flags is a signal. We just started part 2. We've just flipped over from 49-51 situation, and you'll see this in the budget. It's a 49-51 split on the budget. When we power through that 49-51 obstacle, paradigm change, things are going as fast as you think the country's going right now. It's going to go even faster. We have a very short period while Trump's there to get a lot of things done. And the most important thing of all, the thing that President Trump wants to be remembered for, the thing that is at the core of the second administration, is returning an honest vote to America where you actually get people in power that are the ones you voted for, not what somebody else manipulated and sold and counterfeited the vote to put their guy in. And when he restores an honest vote to America, right thinking will come with it. Wisdom will come with it. Economic stability will come with it. And the need to divide, which is what the devil wants, divide and conquer. We will be able to work together and to hold things together. And I think that the need to break up California completely would start to go away. It's not that you still wouldn't have strong groups of counties working together, but they would work together to work in regions within the state as opposed to having to break away from the state potentially. And so we'll see. We'll see how those alliances go. The main thing I was going to say with the Treasury side of it is, if you look at all the battles across the planet, President Trump's trying to stop the killing, Ukraine, Yemen, Iran, Somalia, Lebanon, and the South Africa. In fact, I've got something with South Africa that's amazing. There, the southern tip of South Africa on the western side, there's a breakaway group that wants to Cape Exit is the group, and they want to exit from the country of South Africa because you have a Marxist group that's taken control of the country, and they're over the top. They're crazy. As President Trump talked with the president of South Africa, he pantsed him right there in public over how they're running the country and running portions of Africa. The Cape Exit group has great resources. They have about half of the voters in that region who have already signed what amounts to a ballot measure to be put on the ballot to break away from the rest of South Africa. I actually have people from that group that will be joining me here in a few days. And I think they've got a very good shot at breaking away. In that case there, they are such a minority and they're so under attack, literally for their lives, let alone the rest of their property, etc. And they do have a defensible line with a mountain chains and only a couple roads in, that it makes sense for them to break away at this point in time. And the ANC, this group that has hijacked South Africa, again, with a very crooked voting system. There's probably no better situation for them than to break away, and I think they're going to do that. And they're going to do that referendum very shortly. We spoke recently on the details, and I think that's about to happen. So you heard it here first. But in the case of California, I think that you need to at least be aware over the next few months what you're going to learn. And the revelations that are about to happen on the vote stuff in California are going to be so shocking that you're actually going to find out you're more unified than you were allowed to realize. And that the things that you were trying to do, you're getting the vote right. It's just the mobsters counterfeiting the vote that took you so far off track. If you get an honest vote, I think you're stronger together than you are apart. Just so you know.
Juan, I was super passionate about working Charlita Bassett's campaign as a campaign manager with her on the U.S. Senate race a couple years ago now. But you know, it just seems like they give us the illusion of a fair election, but they have a plan for the results the whole time, just handing it to Adam Schiff as a U.S. senator. And so do you think that we will actually someday actually have the numbers from what the real numbers were from ballots and counting, or is it just something?
In fact, let me just tell you, you know, what you're going to find out is that we know with exacting precision what was done in LA County to flip the vote on several fronts. The people that actually did it with the ballots brought in, printed in China, and then the electronic side that engineered the theft of the vote in California, they are in protective custody here in the U.S. right now. They were brought here a little over a month after Trump came into office this time around. They've been privately protected and taken care of. Some of the early, you know, they're not whistleblowers, they're actually defectors from Venezuela. A handful from just a couple from Cuba, China, Serbia. They're all here in U.S. custody. They've been being debriefed for several months now. And in fact, every week, other critical personnel within various U.S. agencies are being brought in and briefed directly, able to ask the questions of the actual people that were involved. Look at the metadata, the mechanisms, all the details. We know exactly how and where and when the vote was flipped in California and LA County, for example. And we have all that. People are going to jail. They're not going to jail at a federal prison. They're going to jail at Gitmo for involvement in what's happened here. And it will take some time to play it out, even after early arrests. There will be a time period where people get to put stuff together. And some of the cases are more priority than others. California won't be the priority in some of this stuff. So some of those people are going to get to cool their heels while in custody, and they're not getting out on bail because these are war crimes. An act of war was committed against the state of California, and China was involved. That's who was really coordinating this and directly into California, and especially into LA County, but across the state, to steal an election at a nation-to-nation level in the Law of War manual, which is the basis for like Nuremberg trials and things like that that are accepted norms of international interaction. A stolen election in another country is the same as it's in the same category as using a weapon of mass destruction, such as a nuclear or a biological or a chemical weapon. And so a stolen election as a war crime and a WMD type war crime, when we go to prosecute the people involved, we won't prosecute them and send them to a federal prison. It's inappropriate. It's a war crime. And so Nuremberg 2.0 is coming. And part of the reason it's so critical in California, part of the reason that the vote succeeded in the manipulation and the most recent stuff, because more and more Californians were getting worked up and trying to flip this. That's why you had a recall election, is because they needed to up the game to guarantee they could steal the vote all across America, including for the helm of the ship at the presidency. And that's why COVID, it was released not just against America, but to the whole world. The people that we have in physical custody right now, in their statements, in their testimony, in their evidence that they have brought with them, they've shown us how they flipped the vote in 71 other countries, plus the US. So over half the world's population is living under Marxist people, but it wasn't the will of those people. They were forced on them through manipulation of the votes in all of those countries. And so in overturning the crooked false vote in California and America, you're going to also have to go and help these other countries to take corrective action so they get an honest vote of their people, putting their people into office, not somebody else's choice to do somebody else's occupied territory ideas. California is an occupied territory, occupied by people who got into office under falsehoods and are directing the use of your life energy, your taxes, and hijacking your property and stealing your state away from you with people who are doing the bidding of foreigners, China specifically. And once that begins to get exposed and you understand exactly what happened, and we go to a safer voting system, hand count, paper ballot, 1 day vote, counted where cast, not transporting any ballots in the trunk of a police car, fire truck, or grandma's knitting basket. They're counted right there. They stay right there inside. Nothing moves. No magic acts. When we get to an honest vote in California, California is going to be one of the reddest states in the country, and retake control of the helm of the ship of the state of California. Now, I didn't finish, and let me just add one more thing, and I apologize for being over dominant on this. I just want to get this one little detail out. In the fight that we're doing nationally and across the world, you've seen us, what President Trump is doing to get ahead of situations and conflicts that could dominate the media, distract us all, take us off center as we're coming out with the information on the stolen vote, and you see arrests on Russia stuff first, and then the 2020 vote, which will come later. So Trump has to kind of clear these things off the board so that we can't be, distracted by the shiny object here, shiny object there, because China's going to try and do that because we're going after China because they're the ones that were behind COVID. And that's why Californians are going to be so pissed off. Their politicians were working, in many cases knowingly, with China, using the COVID scam to thwart an honest vote in California and to lock down California. When people find out that grandma, their brother, sister, their kids were damaged just for political gain, went through all that pain in California, they are not going to be happy about it. And that will be the stuff that comes out over the next couple of years in stark detail. This isn't going to be, you know, gosh, it kind of looks this way. Now you'll hear the testimony. We've got the details, etc. So with such big things coming, just about to happen, what would be a mechanism closer to home that could really distract from the whole vote issue, the arrests, the Russia stuff, etc.? What's left? It's economic. There is risk into the economy at the global level for things that some of these players may do, trying to push people to BRICS alignments as opposed to the US dollar. And by the way, what Trump did over with Saudi Arabia and Qatar took a lot of the steam out of the whole BRICS thing, took a lot of the steam out of the, oh, Trump's only behind Israel, stuff, and helped commit them not to Russia and China for new arms, but to the US. And those agreements last 20 and 30 years because they're buying weapon systems that put them on a trajectory tied into the US for decades and decades. So an amazing coup on Trump's part there to take some stuff off the boards. So in a chess game, chess is a game of attrition, and you begin closing off avenues for your opponent to go and squirm around and hide and do other stuff. And the board goes from a full board to a half board to a quarter of a board to an eighth of a board, and you got them cornered. And there's less and less pieces through attrition on the board as we get to taking out the Russia players and the 2020 stolen vote players in this 5D chess, chess on 5 boards. It's going to come down to fewer and fewer players, fewer and fewer total moves. Chess is a game of attrition, whereas the game goes longer, there's fewer and fewer moves available, as well as players, fewer and fewer to make the next move. And that's where we're going. And in chess, of course, you have to protect the king at all costs. One of the important moves is the queen always stays close to the king. And that's what you saw with Melania stepping in front and to the side of the president, being available for any move. It wasn't that she personally, physically would do it, but you're showing a chess game right out there before the world and to all of our opponents that we are in a strong position and we still have the right players available to take this game to its endpoint. And the king is not going to be sacrificed. We're not losing this game. Trump's here. He's stable. We have control of the federal city state with the high ground. We've planted the flag, and we're going to protect the dollar, protect the treasury. We're not getting wiped out. They can do what they want to do with BRICS, et cetera. China can try to attack us in that realm. Fight's on. Fight. So,
one of my favorite chess pieces on this board, and from my position, is you could call him like the Trojan horse piece. I would say General Michael Flynn. And one of my favorite memes on X right now is it's a satire meme, but it's like General Flynn in an enclosed glass enclosure, and President Trump standing there with a ball-peen hammer behind his neck, and the sign says, "In an emergency, break glass." And I just feel that General Flynn has so much more to contribute to this country, especially with what they did to him. And I'm happy to see a True Social post by President Trump encouraging people to really dig into the story of General Flynn and his book and explain the truth of what happened to him. What can you say about General Flynn, Juan?
Well, early on, when nobody was backing him, I did a couple of shows that were not interviews, they were presentations um, explaining Flynn's history. And total between the three shows, we had about 5.5 million views. And that was 5.5 hours of material. What his role was in Afghanistan, but the point is that General Flynn, coming in as national security advisor to President Trump, and then being thwarted with the misuse of FBI and things like that, he got, he took the brunt of the whole of the federal government coming against him as an individual and a family. And by the way, when he agreed to plead guilty, that was only because they had started to go after his son and threatened that they were going after his son. And, he could take it personally, but if it goes to the family, he just was not going to allow it to go there. And so that caused all sorts of problems for him. And then eventually Trump gave him the pardon. The only thing I would say there is that, and the Flynn family and individuals there are very close friends. At this exact moment, there's other places that he's going to be of more value than inside our government, is my personal belief. And I think he'll do just fine. He's got a new office across from the White House, et cetera. But he'll do it from outside, not from the inside, and have his place there. The operations that have had to go on, which he's not been a part of on the inside, have matured pretty radically. And it's, everybody has to hold their lane. There's times when you want to do stuff, but if you play any sports, if you get pulled off from protecting your zone, then you're vulnerable. You create open areas. So he's in a particular zone right now. I think he's doing great, and probably is best off staying in that zone. And then there's other people that have been around him in the entourage, if you will, that are proceeding forward, and they're going to be even more critical. The baton gets passed, and I tell people this from a business side all the time. What you do to get into business is not the same as what you do to stay in business. And one of the hardest things for a growing business that's really being successful is to recognize there's a tipping point where a lot of times you have to go from a family business, a certain way of operating, interacting with employees and customers, things like that. And now you're moving into the big leagues, and the things that you're doing don't scale well. And you have to change your mode of operation in order to go from 50 employees to 500 or 5,000. And it's pretty dramatic, all the things that you have to do to be able to go from one to the other. You can be locked into a place. We're going into a different phase, and you're going to see all sorts of new players, young players, people that you haven't seen before, and that's healthy. America is actually very youthful. And the problem you've seen, for example, across the country, but especially in California, is you got a bunch of prehistoric monsters that won't give up the turf and allow the next generation to come in and do what needs to be done. But you got plenty of really, really smart people in California. Some people need to step out of the way and let some really smart youngsters in their late 40s and early 50s get on the board and get to work. And California's going to do just fine. And the country's going to do just fine. And we're not fighting the last war. We're going to bring in new blood, and a lot of these people that are longer in the tooth, there'll be a perfect place for them, kind of helping and working with this next generation and helping to wave off of the wrong motions and to make better decisions moving forward. And guys like Flynn will be part of that move, and it's going to do just fine.
Awesome. That's great news, Juan. Michael, you have any follow-up to that?
Well, no, not for the Flynn questions, but we did talk about youth being in their 40s, but I'd like to drop it down a couple other decades here and talk about Barron's generation. And, his generation looked up to him as a leader already. And we just saw what's going on with this socialist being really popular in New York over here for mayor. And as I look out across the landscape, I see these political hacks in California noticing that success and probably going to try to clone it for the West Coast. And so, is there any chance that Barron is going to enter into the fray as a leader of his generation to, um, take the flag of capitalism forward in the face of socialism? Do you have anything on that?
Well, let me just say this. Yeah, let me just say this. This is a really, really, really important point. Um, if it appears to others around the country that there's some type of a royalty, an elite of those who are trained up just to be our leaders and blessed with the silver spoon, and that's the way to power, then everything that's America is off kilter, off track.
Right.
And a lot of times I know the children of many of famous people within the political realm. And of course, I first saw it years ago. I had, as a kid, I had a friend whose father worked in the crane union, operating these big, huge, high cranes. So he was able to go down the union, pay the money, and at 17 got into a training thing. 18, he's actually out on job sites, and by 21, he's making at the time 10 times what any other kid would make as a crane operator. Well, his father was able to pass to him um, access with his skill set into that union to get that job. And I had a very good friend who was a smart kid, straight A's, everything, got paid the money, got on the list, tried to get into the thing, never got in there. He did it for like 5 years, never got the call. But it was a very small union, very tight, and the guys wanted to hand it off to their kids. It was like, a father that does, concrete or, woodwork or something like that, and passing the trade off. The kid learns it when he's a little kid. And by the time he's a young adult, he knows the trade or the craft perfectly. Well, it's his father handing it down. It's what he has to give. And they tend to keep it close, or something. And so it's very hard to get in there. They screen it out. That Barron has extra opportunities and access and gets to rub shoulders with all sorts of people. Like, myself, I had an advantage as a kid that was not something so much by birth, but by circumstance that allowed me to be in the presence of and be befriended by some amazing people that other people in my, social circle or whatever had no prayer of ever breaking those thresholds for very unique reasons, and one thing built upon another. So I got really schooled by a very interesting, different group of people, and that paved the way for other things that happened all through my life. But you couldn't have duplicated it in other people around me for 1,000, a million reasons known only to God. And that really prepared me for all the rest of my life. Just because Barron's in the right place doesn't mean that it will be the same for him. I know so many children of very powerful, influential people, be it in Hollywood, be it in um, politics or business, etc. A lot of times the kids are just not the same as the parents. They have a different, everything about how they grew up was different. Their access, their interests, their desires are very different. And so it's not a guarantee that Barron would be a natural into the political realm. Now, he may very well be. And I think there is some tendencies there, Barron 2048 for
Yeah.
president, right? Let's have
Yeah.
some fun. But there's a long time between here and there. And in the American system, it's not a bloodline right to rule. It is based on your performance, your application of your life energy. And I would challenge that someone like Barron can get in and he can mix it up and show his mettle and his interests and his aptitude and things like that. And if he chooses that route, he might have a bit of a head start given to him by his dad. That's totally appropriate, and access and um, build for that and follow in the footsteps of his dad. And if he gets there, he would have to work very hard to show that he's not there just because of his bloodline. He's there because he earned the right to be there. Um, he's there because he should be there and he has all the makings of it. Would it continue into other generations? Maybe, maybe not. But that's the criteria in America to get to power. It's not, your dad was the mob leader, and so you're the next mob leader. That we're not doing that. This is performance based. Um, uh, it's not the color of your skin. It's your character. It's not uh, the school that you went to. It's that you actually got to that school um, and went through it and paid your dues and didn't buy the reports to be able to get the grades, through some kind of graft. Uh, uh, it's going to be performance based. That's the future for America, and that's the kids. That's the image we want to send. If
Yeah.
Barron sends that kind of an image, and get in here and let's dust it up together and work with other people around him, good for him. Then he will have made a huge difference in America because he's iron sharpens iron as brother sharpens brother. If he's a sharp kid and he sharpens up people around him and they all work together, one of the things you'll see is people that come out of nowhere you never saw coming, and yet they have from God Himself certain things about them, certain understanding, certain insights, certain life experience that makes them the right guy moving forward.
I would agree with that. Michael, anything to follow up there?
Well, a while back we had the iconic picture of Barron with his hand up to his ear, and it's reminiscent of some WWE superstar kind of stuff to the crowd. He got a big rise from the crowd doing that, just not even speaking a word. And so I know that the younger generation looks up to him already. And I wasn't thinking that he would cruise in under his daddy's name, but I was thinking more along the terms of when he does actually speak to his own generation. I know there will be a lot of listeners just hanging on every word. And so to
Well,
extent he does have quite an influence now without even saying anything. And so I'm excited to see, what he ends up doing with his life. And I'm proud of him just being quiet as he is now because of how the media can try to tear him apart if he does speak.
let me just add this, let me just jump in and add this. His mother was very insistent that he not be politicizing or politicized in his teen years. And so she really did a great job as a mom to keep him out of the limelight and let him grow up. And he's got some great friends around him, and I know several of the people that are in contact with him pretty regularly. And that helped him in allowing him room to kind of move into where he's at mentally right now in college and like that. But he's still a young guy, and this even in the story Moneyball, with a great kid who's got a great future and is just an amazing athlete, but they moved him up too fast, and it actually damaged him in some ways as a player. And if he had gone through the ranks a little bit more, he probably would have continued to mature and had an amazing career. But just because he's a good performer at a young age doesn't mean you can bypass some of the steps that you need to do in order to develop your skill sets enough to operate at the pro level. There's 1,000 little things that, nothing beats experience. When you're learning how to pilot, just because you've passed and you've gotten through the simulator and all the other stuff and you're soloing, there's so much more that you have to experience and learn, and nothing beats seat time. The more you do it, the better you get. I want to give him enough room to continue to develop his own life experiences and relationships and history, so that when he does, you know, want to transition, say, from the business world that he'll grow up in and making his own, history, and move into the public realm. It's not premature. He's got enough life experience that when he does make that move, he's in the right zone experience-wise on lots and lots of levels, and it just takes time. I mean, there's nothing beats seat time. So I think he is going to be there, but I'm no rush to get him there. And by the way, while he's working with other people in other areas of his life, it's not just that he gets experience with those other people, and many of them will also transition into public life to help get the country on track as a matter of civic duty. And that's exactly what we want. We want a whole generation of people that don't want government as a career, but will step forward as a part of their civic duty and spend some time in the public realm, and then go back out and continue their lives and hand the baton to others. That's the strength of America. That's the original way it was designed, and that's what we're going to go back to with God's help.
Amen to that. That's right. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Michael. You guys, it's been a great good morning, and it's going to be a great day today. Thanks for making some time to be on the Ultra MK podcast, and I hope I can bring you guys back again soon.